I have a pedalboard that has compression, overdrive, delay, reverb, amp and cap sim, a volume pedal, and a wah pedal. It can go from sparkling clean to singing lead, has the dotted eighth delay and the shimmer reverb. And all of that mounted on a Pedaltrain Nano that can fit in a mono guitar take. Oh, and it can do this too. Allow me to introduce to you my PT Nano worship rig. Why a pedalboard? I'll admit, giant pedalboards are cool. There's something about beholding buttons, knobs, and dials, a labyrinth of cabling that rocks back and forth the board, the dazzle of lights as the board turns on. But most of us aren't rock stars who have techs to bring all this stuff and set it up for us. We're pretty much on our own. There was a time in my gigging life when carrying a pedalboard in one hand, an amp in the other, and a guitar strapped to the back was the expected loadout. I still remember having to lug an AC-15 up a flight of stairs to a gig, and to this day, I can recreate the back pain in my mind and almost feel it even though it's been years. And every time I find myself feeling jealous of those giant pedalboards on Facebook or Instagram, I recreate a memory of that back pain. And that same memory fuels my obsession with finding the perfect PT Nano rig today. For those of you who've been around the channel for a while, I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just use your HX Stomp standalone? I still do, and I think it's an excellent setup, but it's still a modeling solution mounted on a PT Nano. I still want to scratch that analog pedal itch. It sounds weird, but I find some fun in playing pedal Tetris. You know, finding the patch cables, wiring the power cables, hooking it all up, and the final satisfaction of seeing it all light up when you turn the power on. So what's on this Pedaltrain Nano? Let's find out. The key to a Pedaltrain Nano rig is that every pedal performs several functions at once, doubles up, or is exceedingly good at its job in a small form factor. It starts with the Hotone Vowpress, a combo volume and wah pedal that changes its function by clicking on the bypass switch. It's not going to be as gentle a taper as with a full-sized pedal, and there's a learning curve in acclimating to the pedal's travel, but once you do, you'll feel right at home using it both for volume and wah. That routes to the first of two Neunaber pedals, the Neuron Gain Intelligence pedal. It's an entire preamp package crammed into a pedal. There's a compressor, a very powerful EQ, a noise gate, and enough gain on tap to go from sparkling clean to crushing distortion. It even has cabinet simulation, but I've disabled that in favor of tweaking the cab sound via the Iconoclast at the end of the chain. I've set the Neuron to have two presets, which functionally means three. Two as saved in the onboard memory and one manual preset as determined by the knobs. This covers my clean, crunch, and lead sounds, which I can cycle through using the preset switch. As I've played with a SenseM Tri-OD before that has a similar control layout and that presets are cycled through with one switch, this feels familiar. As the SenseM blurb says, you're never two button presses away from your intended sound. That routes to the pair of GFI system pedals, the Clockwork delay and the Specular Reverb, which if you've seen my earlier content, you'll be familiar with them. They're my budget Strymon pedals, both stereo capable with the perfect jack spacing to use those pancake patch cable heads and an intuitive preset scroll bypass system. One button scrolls across 4 presets, but a preset won't be engaged until you hit the bypass switch. On the Clockwork delay, the preset scroll button is also a tap tempo. But wait, how do you tap tempo if that's also a scroll button? The button changes function after scrolling through the presets with 4 presses. On the second time around that the presets are scrolled, tap tempo is activated for the current preset. I know you're thinking that there's a lot of tapping involved, but trust me, having used these pedals for years, the tap dancing is minimal in practice on the Sunday morning where the song tempos are all quite similar. This all leads to the Neunaber Iconoclast for cabinet emulation. The EQ section on this pedal here serves as the master EQ and noise gate for the rig. If I need to revoice the rig to have more high end because the room is a little dead, I can tweak it here without having to change the EQ on all my Neuron presets. For studio work, it's also wonderful to be able to have radically different EQs on the same guitar rig just by tweaking a few knobs. Pro tip for massive sounding rhythm tracks. Double track the rhythm guitar by playing the same parts on 2 different tracks, but also change up the EQ in a complementary fashion between the tracks. If you have a mid boost on one track, have a mid cut on the other. You'll find a much more pleasant stereo spread of tone across the rhythm layer that doesn't have any stacked frequency buildup. Before we carry on, if you found value in this video, hit that like button as it lets me know that this is relevant for you and YouTube pushes it out to more people. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to join me on this crazy ride as a fellow musician. And now what I think is the coolest part of this rig, the ability to go battery powered for the times the stage manager forgot to account for your setup. I've gigged at enough places to know that eliminating cable setup is going to save a ton of hassle. You never know if the venue power is going to be reliable or noisy. True story, I once gigged at a place where the setup time between hitting the stage and being ready for the first note was 60 seconds or however long the MC took to introduce the band. Every band was expected to be in charge of their own setup, including the electric guitarists who had to lug their setups onto the stage, fumble around to get the power supply plugged in, the instrument cable in, and finally the cables to the front of house. Sometimes I wish I was the drummer who could just walk up to the kit and sit down, ready to play. The electric guitarist was always the slowest, but not me. Coupled with a wireless guitar system, my setup was as follows. Before hitting the stage, I'd turn the wireless on, turn the pedalboard on, walk onto the stage, set the pedalboard down, plug in the cables to the front of house, and I was ready to rock. That's the power of going wireless and battery powered, the marriage of portability and utility. Sure, there's magic in having the massive pedalboard which can command the stage both physically and sonically, but there are times you'll need to be able to set up and tear down quickly. That's where you'll need this. And that's me. What about you? What do you love about nano-sized rigs, or do you hate them? How big is your pedalboard? I'd love to hear your stories in the comment section below. I previously did a video specifically exploring the tonal range of the Neunaber Neuron and Iconoclast for the contrarian worship musician. If you'd like to hear more of these tones in a worship context, please check that video out. I'll see you there. Until next time, I'm Justin, and I'm all about worship guitar.